Hey, good evening. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to The Unstoppable Singer, formerly known as the Pandemic Proof Singer. It's a new chapter, so we're moving on with a new name. I am your host, Danielle Tucker. I'm a singer, a vocal coach. I'm a lead singer with the Mighty Untouchables band. I produced the Pandemic Proof Singer Summit 1 and 2, and now I produce and host The Unstoppable Singer. The Unstoppable Singer is a live interview style series where I'm following the lives of real life professional singers. And these singers have made incredible achievements in their lives and careers. We cover everything from voice work, making money, booking gigs, songwriting, recording, session work, and a lot more. We're just kind of pulling the curtain back on the industry, taking a little look. With everything that we have been through in the past couple of years here, we really strongly focus on going from surviving to thriving in this business. So we're working on safeguarding our careers, building strong bodies, minds, open hearts. And sometimes all that takes is a little inspiration from those that are out there doing it as well. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, stick around because I have an incredible guest tonight. I am so incredibly excited to talk with him. It's Conor Warren Smith. Conor is an LA-based performer, studio vocalist, arranger, and composer. His voice has appeared in major motion pictures like Spiderman, No Way Home, and Mulan. I'm sure you've heard of those. Television shows like American Horror Story, The Blacklist, studio albums, video games, Disney recordings, and more. And in 2018, he was signed to Disney Music Group, releasing an album with Disney's critically acclaimed a cappella group, DCappella, the following year. And he's performed across the globe from renowned concert halls and recording studios to the stages of Universal Studios, Hollywood, and the Disneyland Resort. Notably, he reprised the role of everyone's favorite snowman, Olaf, in Disney California Adventure's production of Frozen. Conor has had the immense pleasure of working with music icons like Olivia Rodrigo, Rosalía, The Weeknd, Camila Cabello, Michael Bublé, Dick Van Dyke, Jodi Benson, Brad Kane, just to name a few. We have so much to talk about tonight. He obviously has done quite a lot in his career, and I think he's just barely getting started. So let's bring him on right away. Welcome, Conor.
Hello. Thank you for that intro. Wow.
You know, I had all of the information on you, and I thought, well, how can I keep this concise? Well, I can't because it's too much good stuff. I don't want to cut anything out.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody needs to know how cool you are. Well, let's get started. Lately, I've been starting this show by just asking, why don't you give us a 2021 recap, how things went for you last year, and how's 2022 starting out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think so many people's careers got thrown for a total loop with the pandemic and just trying to figure out what am I gonna do? And thankfully I had, some experience recording myself already. Like I did have a small home studio set up prior to the big shutdown and everything. But I would say early 2020 in that panic of what are we gonna do was really when I kind of really dove into how can I make my home studio great, and not just equipment wise, but also learn the skills required to be my own vocal producer and to just diversify.
Yeah.
So I've been spending a lot of time doing that in the last year and a half or so. And now that work seems to be back to normal-ish,
Mhm.
things are great, and I have a lot of new skill sets that I didn't have
Yeah.
before, so I'm grateful for that. But this year so far has actually been pretty great so far, work-wise for me. It's kind of just been pedal to the metal and nonstop. I think so many people have put their projects on hold for so
Mhm.
long that now it's just go, 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 go. We got to make up for all this lost time. So yeah, it's been pretty crazy in a great way.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Would you say that you're doing more, studio work now, or are your live performances taking off again too?
No, it's pretty evenly split, honestly, which
Yeah.
I love for my own, like, life variety sake.
Mhm.
So, I might have 1 or 2 sessions and also, like, a day at Disneyland or a corporate gig or something like that in a week, so it kind of balances out. It seems like it's about 50-50 right now.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know you do have such a, um, oh gosh, you've got such a diverse, um, skill set. You're just obviously an incredibly educated musician. You're not a museum, I
Not a
promise.
museum.
Um, so that makes for such a great career because you're never doing the same thing all the time. So I've always found when you can kind of go down so many different channels, you really reduce your risk of getting burned out on what it is that you're
Yeah.
doing. Everything kind of seems fresh all the
That
time.
was some of the earliest advice that was ever given to me when I was trying to, like, find my way and, like, how do you have a career as a
Mm,
musician? Because I think for people that are not in the music industry, there's this narrative of, like, the starving artist
mhm,
or the superstar, and it's, like, one or the other, and that is really not the case at all. Like, there
yeah,
are so many people out there making quality, good livings, able to buy houses, raise families, working in this industry that are not Lady Gaga or are not homeless. Like, there is so much in between. And one of the best pieces of advice to find that middle road that I received was to have as many quality streams of revenue as you can. And, you know, it does become a bit of a juggling act because then you try to, like, you don't wanna do too many things because then you confuse people as to, like, what you are able to do.
yeah,
But if you are able to do several things well, then when one of those things goes away, you're still okay because you have this going on, and you got this going on, and you got this going on. Um,
mm.
so I try to do it all.
Amen and hallelujah. We can pretty much stop the interview there
Yeah.
because everything you just said is everything that this program is about. That is the whole point of the driving force behind this, really is to let artists out there know that you don't have to subscribe to the starving artist mentality. When we're young, we see what we see in the media, and when we think about becoming singers, musicians, we think, okay, getting on the radio, having an album, doing those types of things. The radio is not really even a thing anymore, I don't think, but you know what I mean. Uh, and what very, very few young people know is that there are so many channels in the music industry,
Mhm.
so many channels available to singers alone.
Yeah.
And I think, to heighten the awareness of what those opportunities are is really important, especially with everything that we've just been through.
It's true, and social media has also done a great job of
Yeah.
helping that just
Mhm.
because of the visibility of all of these things. Someone can see, "Oh, Conor does corporate events where he's singing Motown, and then he can write choir music, and then he's at church, and then he's at Disney," and so it's like all of these things make up a expansive career. It's not just
Yeah.
one or the other. Um, so
Yeah.
I've always kind of subscribed to the mindset of, like, you walk through the doors that are opened to you.
Yeah.
And, I have this idea of what I want to do and who I want to be and where I want my career to go. But at the
Mhm.
end of the day, like, I am just walking through the doors that are ahead of me. And it's worked out so well, or it's
Yeah.
worked out so far.
It sure has. Yes.
Yeah,
I love that. And I definitely I want to talk about your vision for where you see things going for you. But before we do that, let's back up a little bit
for sure.
and tell me a little bit about where your musical journey began and what it's been like for you. What kind of education did you pursue and how did you get your start?
Yeah. So I think I've always been attached to my voice, and, like, at its basic level, singing makes me happy. And,
Yeah.
like, that mindset right there has kind of driven so many of my passions in my entire life. So I grew up in church. I started singing in church, contemporary worship band, um, middle school choir, high school choir, musical theater. But where I really kind of like dove into um, finding my own voice was in this community choir called the Gary Bonner Singers, which my high school accompanist was, I mean, my high school choir director was the accompanist for.
Okay.
And they were in need of tenors. And so I was 16 at the time, and it's an all adult group. But so this was the first time that I'd been like around great singers, like
Mhm.
great adult singers. Obviously, I had great high school singers with me, but like people that were like developed voices, and I just loved it. Um, and so I sang in that group for a couple of years, went to the college that the director, Dr. Bonner, taught at.
Mhm.
And at that school, I really, I was hungry to travel, to grow, to learn. Um, and I really enjoyed my time there. I studied music composition,
Mhm.
and I stayed for a master's degree in conducting, all while really focusing on vocal stuff. So it
Mhm.
was, running groups, singing in concerts, arranging music. Um, I loved it. And so that kind of background was very much in, contemporary Christian music.
Right.
And I'd always been like exposed to like pop music and secular music. And like I watched American Idol and Glee. So I like had an understanding of all of that, but it wasn't like my roots.
Mhm.
So when I uh, graduated from CBU and kind of got like thrust into the real world, there were a lot of blank spaces in my like musical education
Huh.
in terms of like pop um, and pop culture music that have been filled in since then. And it's just one of those things that I said of like walking through the doors that are open.
Yeah.
So when I'm trying to figure out, I'm 24 years old, no idea what I'm gonna do. Like,
Mhm.
how am I gonna make money? I know I'm good at singing, but I have no idea what we're gonna do. And somebody says, "Hey, can you do this gig? It's all Motown songs." And I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't know any Motown, but yes, let's learn it all. And then somebody's like, "Oh, I need you next week to do a Spanish set." Sure, let's do it. And just being a yes person and, taking things on. Um, so yeah, I after college is when I started like really hitting the ground running and auditioning for everything that I could,
Mhm.
and you know, asking people like, tell me your career path. How did you get where you're going? What are the things that you're doing to provide for yourself? Um, and it was through there that I found out about Disney auditions, and it's kind of just been a snowball effect after that. But I try
Mhm.
to apply the same mentality of giving 100% of yourself to everything that you do, no matter how small you might think it is,
Yeah.
because you never know who's in the audience or who you're working with. And I think one of the only reasons I got hired at Disney was because I had just done a gig that the music director that hired me was at. And
Uh-huh.
so he saw me at this small little gig that I was like, who knows what this is for. And then when I showed up at the audition next week, he was like, "You look familiar."
Mhm.
Um, so you never know who's watching, who's listening, and if you can put 100% of your effort into everything that you do, um, you know, things will hopefully work out.
Yeah. I love that you shared that because that's something that is a through line with every successful musician, singer that I know their backstory of is that one little thing leads to another, leads
Mhm.
to another, leads to another. And being impeccable with the way you do your work, like you said, is so important because you never know. Your reputation starts from gig number one and it continues to follow you. And I'm sure we've heard horror stories about, certain people, even like bad behavior on one single gig can follow you and haunt you for an
Sure.
eternity, and it really works both ways.
Sure. I mean, it's the same thing with when you hear people talk about celebrities or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I've heard that person's not nice."
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah.
wanna say, like, well, maybe they just had a bad day, but
Yeah.
now that, like, is following them with all of those people's friends.
Yeah.
So, like, you gotta be
I
on your
know.
best behavior at
You
all
really do. You
times.
really do. Watch yourself. Um, so when you were going through all of your schooling, and getting educated, what was your vision that you had? Where did you in your mind, where did you think things were going to go? Like, what was that driving force behind getting all of the schooling?
Sure. In my head, my career was going to be you're gonna get your master's, and then you're gonna move to Nashville, and you're gonna pursue a career in, like, Christian songwriting. I've
Mhm,
never really had the desire to be, like, a star or, like, the artist. I much prefer to be in a, like, supporting role to that. I feel like a leadership in that field area,
mhm.
but I myself don't like, I'm not pining for the spotlight kind of
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
So I had anticipated, going out there, becoming a songwriter and, choir, arranger, and I
Mhm,
had some inroads that were potentially going to be working themselves out,
mhm.
in my last few years at CBU, but, you know, the I feel like I always end up going to this story in these interviews, so we don't have to, like, dwell here too long,
Yeah.
but, when I had just finished at CBU, I basically had decided that it could go one of 2 ways, and
Mhm,
if I was gonna go into Christian music, I had to be there 100%,
mhm,
and I think things are, like, hopefully changing, but at the time, it was like, you definitely cannot be an out gay man in
mhm.
this industry and
Right.
thrive.
Yeah.
So, it was either I pursue where, my passion is, but I am lying about who I am and
Mm.
am gonna be unhappy romantically,
Mhm,
or I give this dream up and figure something else out.
mhm.
But I'm being true to myself and, you know, not lying.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
so I decided to come out of the closet and kinda let the chips fall where they were. Um Which was kind of exactly where I anticipated them falling. I
Mhm,
lost most of my connections and, the potential jobs that I had. Um, there's still really, only a handful of people that I stay really in contact with from that time in my life, and I kinda developed a bit of a chip on my shoulder about the whole thing, and it's taken me a long time to get past that,
yeah.
and not feel like I have to constantly prove myself to
Mm.
the people from that time in my life, which it's still a struggle, but I feel like
Sure.
I'm definitely past the hardest part of it.
Mhm,
Um, so, that's kinda where I saw my career originally going,
mhm,
um, and then I had to pivot, and I pretty much started completely over. But the, training that I had and the drive that I had developed over all of my time,
mhm,
in the Christian music world, you know, I I still have all of that. I have
mm.
all of the lessons that I learned, um, and, things have certainly worked out, so
Yeah.
I am not bitter.
Yeah. I know if you had only known back then what you know now.
Yeah.
But how incredibly courageous of you to move in that direction, especially, at such a young age. But then again, at the same time, you were still at an age where you'd already built this network. You'd already built a foundation for where you were going with things. And as musicians, that's everything for us.
Mhm.
That's the platform that we, get all of our opportunities and our work from. Um, so was there did you feel there was some sort of a turning point that led you to make that decision? What had an opportunity come to you that you had to?
There were a handful of arrangements that I had that were
Mm.
slated to be published by a Christian music publisher, and they had heard some rumors that I and one of my co-writers were both gay, and they pulled them from publishing. That was one, but then the other was that, my school was really trying to get me connected with a music pastor job, and so I kept meeting with different pastors at churches, and, they would be so excited about everything that I could bring to their church and, what my vision would be for their program, and then at some point in all of those meetings, I would say, "So tell me about your stance on affirming theology." And then just the
Uh-huh.
whole room would change, and
Record
all of it
scratch.
exactly, all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh, well, maybe you're not the right fit for this after all."
Mhm.
And that just became too difficult of a conversation to have after having
Mhm.
it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So at the time, I had a lot invested in my YouTube channel. I had done a lot of things on YouTube, um, and I said, "You know what? I need to come out. Like, I need to just make something one and done. We're
Mhm.
putting it out there, and then I don't have to have this conversation anymore."
Yeah.
Um, so I made a coming out video, and that is kind of what, like, really snapped.
Yeah.
At the time, it went viral for at least what I would consider my content to be
Mhm.
viral. It wasn't like, millions and millions and millions of views, but, it was definitely up there, and I think if you still are searching for, like, gay Christian on YouTube, it's, like, one of the ones.
Yeah.
Um, and so that video kind of sparked a big change.
Mhm. Mhm. And then, so fast forward to today, um, are you still involved in church music at all, or is that an avenue you no longer pursue? I guess, and the reason I guess I'm asking that is, do you feel like that is um, an industry that has progressed to a point where you have a place that you feel comfortable and
Yeah.
that you belong in?
It really depends because, just like any other, group of people, whether it's political or whatever, there's a vast spectrum of
Mhm.
people within any instance. And so, like, Christianity has so many different denominations, some of which are very welcoming and, embracing of people from different backgrounds and different minor belief systems within the whole thing.
Mhm.
And, so there are certainly places out there. And I my first time singing back in church was in October of 2020. And,
Mm.
if you've heard of Hour of Power, it's a show on TBN,
Mhm.
um, their church is down in Irvine, and they asked me to come be a guest artist, and I was a little tentative at first just because,
Mhm.
I was like, I have had a few traumatic experiences in church settings, especially like right before I came out and then right after. So I was a little iffy about it, but I decided to do it. And I had jumped in a few other times for about a year after that first time. And it was just a really healing experience to be
Mhm.
around a group of people that were so embracing and welcoming and weren't going to ask me like uncomfortable questions. And it's been a really powerful thing for me to be there. In July of 2021, they offered me a spot as a staff singer in their
Uh-huh.
choir, so I'm
Mhm.
there every week now, and have really built a little community and a little family
Mhm.
um, over there. So I feel like it really is exactly what I needed
Mhm.
to have, you know, that part of my past and my really my musical upbringing to get to use that in marry it to my like work in TV and film
Right.
and find a place where I could combine both of those things and feel welcome and at home.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very happy to be there. Yeah.
That's great. I love that for you. I love that it came kind of full circle for you,
Hmm.
in that regard. And just, um, I am certain that you're a huge inspiration for so many people because of the steps, that you did take. And today you find yourself pretty much, you're kind of living the singer's dream, especially for working singers. Your opportunities, they don't really get any bigger than that. I mean, you just did a major motion picture,
Yeah,
on the
Spider-Man.
soundtrack.
I'm still giddy about Spider-Man. Like it's so cool.
Yeah, tell us that story. How did that come to be?
Um, yeah. So I'm pretty sure Spider-Man is one of the first films since COVID to have a big choir again.
Mhm.
Um, and we were all kind of just like in awe of that moment. And I think any like studio singer can tell you like their first session back after this whole big break is just like tears, and it's like
Yes.
so cathartic and emotional and like
Yeah.
weird and amazing. Um yeah, and Spider-Man was definitely one of those experiences, because there's a lot of singers out there that like the big choral sessions, that is their bread and butter.
Mhm.
And so when that went away, and choir really was something that people were really iffy about for a really long time.
Right. Mhm.
Um, and so for those of us that, choir is a huge part of our lives and our careers, that was hard.
Yeah.
Um, so Spider-Man was really special for all of us to walk into that room, and we were all set up in our own booth. It wasn't like we're all on the risers,
Mhm.
shoulder to shoulder. We were all in our own little cubicle, but we're still all in the same room.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was amazing. Those sessions are stressful
Mhm.
and very satisfying
Yeah.
because they're go, 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 go. For Spider-Man, I think we had like maybe 4 hours to get through the whole thing. So there were some cues where it was just like, we don't have time for rehearsal. You better read it right the first time. Let's go.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that will make anybody get a little nervous, but it's really also, you just feel satisfied and proud at the end of the day. It's like, yeah, we did that.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Total, definite OMG moment, of your career.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious to know, once you kind of took your turn a few years back and decided to pursue this other path, what were some of those landmark moments for you where you received an opportunity maybe that told you, this is going to happen for me, things are starting to happen for me? What did that look like for you?
It was definitely DCappella. Um,
Okay.
yeah, it was 2018, and I got a record deal with Disney Music Group, signed with a group called DCappella,
Mhm.
and that that was my like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Like I can do this
Mhm.
kind of moment. And at the same time, that group also taught me a massive lesson, because I released an album with them and then
Mhm.
I was cut from the group. And
Mm.
that was one of those situations where, like, I would say professionally, that stung more than anything else.
Mm.
I except maybe coming out and
Sure.
losing a bunch of friends. But, post coming out, that, because it was my dream,
Yeah.
grew up listening to Disney. And, so when I was, cut from that group, it it definitely made me kind of, like, take a step back, and, that Hollywood experience of,
Mhm.
somebody's telling you that you're gonna be a star one day, and then the next it's like, "Oh, actually, we're going a different direction."
Oh,
Which
wow.
but eventually, you just learn that that is how this game goes, and sometimes you're not the right person for
Mhm.
a project, and that's okay.
Mhm.
And because there will be a project out there that you are perfect for.
Right.
And, I have just started getting into contracting a little bit, and, it's difficult to have, like, those conversations with somebody if they're like, "Why wasn't I right?" Or, and sometimes
Mm.
all you can say is, "It's not that you're bad. It's just that
Yeah.
you're not right for this, but it doesn't
Right.
mean you won't be right for the next thing."
Mhm. Yeah.
So, um, pick yourself up and be resilient and don't give up.
Yeah. Keep looking for those open doors, like you said.
Yeah,
They're there
absolutely.
if you're keeping your eyes open for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so tell me, of course, post 2020, early 21, what is the day in the life like for you, or maybe the week in the life with the various projects that you're involved with? How does that
Sure.
look?
It's always crazy. If people
Mhm.
looked at my calendar, they would have a heart attack, because, one day I might have a day at Disneyland where I am a cast member, performer,
Mhm.
and then I might have a session that I record from home, um, might have a couple voiceover auditions, um, then, I have been doing quite a bit of wedding band, party band gigs.
Mhm.
So sometimes those are traveling, sometimes those are not.
Mhm.
But those are so fun
Yeah.
because we're just doing everybody's favorite songs, and if it's a wedding, everybody's happy, hopefully. And
Most of the time.
yeah. Um, so I'm doing those. Um, and at least right now in this season of life, my career as an arranger and composer, is kind of taking a back seat,
Mm,
not because I'm not using it, just because I'm walking through the doors that are open to me, and
yeah.
right now in this particular season of life, it's a lot of live work and studio stuff.
Mhm.
But there are a couple projects that I am writing music for and contracting on. So those are still there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um so yeah, it's always crazy,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, that's great. So what would you say, I wanna circle back to, just vision and, where what's the driving force for you now? Like, where do you want to see things go? Is there a certain direction, or are you just kind of open to possibility on all levels? Or are you strategically working towards something?
Sure. Um I think that strategically I I think my strategy is to continue to say yes to things.
Mm,
And
good.
I have found that I have developed a love for things that used to really scare me,
Ah,
because I used to say that being the front man of a band, or like singing rock, or some of those things used to be like, "Oh, I can't do that. That's
okay.
beyond me." Um But if I took the chance on it and I did it, and I realized like, "Oh, actually, I can do that, and it's a lot of fun."
Yeah.
And now I love being like the front man for a rock band, for like these wedding gigs or a party band kind of thing. Like it's a blast.
Yeah.
Um, so, I'm continuing to stay open, but I would say one of my dreams would be to be the vocal contractor and arranger for
Mm.
a musical television show.
Mm.
Um, which hopefully may be happening soon. Well, who knows? We'll
Ooh.
see. But I would say that Glee was a massive development of what I, wanted to do, because I
Mhm.
saw those people and I loved that music. And at the time, I was in high school. I didn't know like that there was a whole team of people working behind all of the
Right.
people on screen.
Yeah.
And so after I learned that, I was like, well, that's what I want to do. Like
Mhm.
obviously that's what I need. So, who knows when it'll be that the next Glee comes around, but I would love to be working in one of those positions for sure.
Well, I can see that happening for sure. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
thank you.
Yes, so many disciplines. I mean, to keep a schedule the way that you do, to keep yourself, healthy, energized, and just mentally in a good space. It's a lot. It's a
It
lot
is,
of
yeah.
work, and not to mention all those other things that you're doing. You're also quite an avid content creator too. I want to definitely bring everybody's attention to your Instagram and your TikTok. You have an incredible TikTok channel.
Oh,
D-
thank you.
How does that fit into the big picture for you? Are you scheduling, creating that content, or do you do it just when you can?
It kind of depends, honestly. So I haven't talked about them yet, but I am a part of an a cappella group called Revoiced,
Yeah.
and I joined them in the pandemic. I think it was May of 2020, and we really hit the ground running with TikTok. And it was kind of like, well, we can't tour, so what are we gonna do? Let's
Hmm.
start making videos. And that group really blew up. I think we have over 200,000 followers on TikTok. Um, and that group has its own like checklist of like, here's what we're doing this week. We got to film these videos, record these songs, mix these songs, arrange these songs. Like we have our little calendar of things that we're doing. And we're banking a lot of stuff. Like we've taken a brief pause from releasing things so we can get a bunch more videos ready. But I would say in the next couple weeks, we will be back to releasing stuff on a regular schedule, which we're all very excited about.
Yeah.
So that's Revoiced. For me personally, it's very much I'm going by my own inspiration, and when
Hmm.
I want to do something is when I do it, and when I don't want to do something, I realize maybe my energy is better spent elsewhere than turning this into a chore. Because
Hmm.
for me, content is fun.
Hmm.
It's something that brings me joy, and if other people wanna come along for the ride of that, then great, but I'm not making things for other people, I'm making them for myself,
Yeah.
and, you know, that, is I have not turned my content stuff into, like, a monetization career kind of thing of like, "Oh, I gotta stay on top of these trends and all of that stuff in order to make money."
Hmm.
So for me, it's very much still just like a fun outlet kind
Yeah.
of thing. So like just the other day, like I really wanted to, do this new Charlie Puth song. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it and we're gonna release it. And it's gonna be great. But
Um,
like it's because I wanted to do it, not because I had to for anybody else.
yeah. Yeah. I know. I think there is that maybe assumption behind people getting on TikTok or whatever platform that you're trying to um, get everything that you do to become viral. But I think anybody who knows the heart and mind of creative people, that you're really just always constantly trying to find a creative outlet
Yeah.
somewhere that you can share it. And
Right.
so they really are these incredible channels that have popped up, in the past few years. And I love that it's kind of leveled the playing field for so many and opened doors for so many people.
For sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
it's really cool. Well, tell us more about Revoice. Tell us about the group and what you're all working on. And I could see by your post that you're all traveling a lot, or are you?
Yeah, no, they're on a cruise right now. I couldn't go because I have other gigs lined up this week, but they are all on a boat, I think, around the Bahamas area right
Wow,
now.
bummer.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Um, well, I actually also recently had a traumatic cruise experience,
Oh no.
I wasn't, like, too upset about not being available, but no, we're recording a lot of content. We do have a new album that is in the works. I'm not sure. It may still be, maybe 6 months to a year out, but we are slowly working on that. But something that I love about Revoiced is that, I've always been an arranger, but
Mhm.
I have only up until I joined Revoiced arranged for live performance.
Mm.
So I was arranging for groups that I was in or for, other people's shows. But to write for Revoiced really helped me develop skills as a vocal producer and to write for a record versus
Mhm.
to write for a live show. So if it's a live show, it's like, okay, how many singers do you have? We got to do it only for 4 people and it's got to be, just like this. Whereas if it's for a record, not only does it give you an endless amount of possibilities for what you can do in terms of parts, but it's
Mhm.
also the approach is going to be so different. And, vocally, you might be adding in so many more like breaths and different sounds and transitions vocally that you're not going to do live because live you just want to hit it strong,
Yeah.
whereas studio stuff you have so much more freedom. And so when I've been writing for Revoiced, it gives me you know just I have so many more colors that I can play with, and
Mhm.
it's helped me really hone those skills to write for pop artists and to do backgrounds for, these pop artists because I now can do studio work for them rather than just all right, because previously like I'd done a few things where I took somebody's song,
Mhm.
um, you know, where they have 65 background vocals and it's like, okay, you got 3 live singers.
Yeah.
What are we taking? What are we cutting? What can we combine these things? And
Mhm.
um, so now to do the reverse is also really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And so for those who aren't familiar with the group, what is the concept behind the group? What kind of what style of music are you
Yeah,
doing?
yeah, yeah.
Who's involved in the show and everything?
Revoiced is a 5 person a cappella group, all male. I sing, well, we kind of all switch around, but technically I'm singing top tenor. And then
Mhm.
we have Chris Rossi singing tenor 2, Mark Hasman singing baritone, Jojo Atsuedu doing bass, and
Mhm.
Justin Critchfield on vocal percussion. So we have the 5 guys, and our TikTok stuff and Instagram, our new album, it's all pretty much like current pop. We
Mhm.
do have some throwback stuff where we'll take like an older song um, and kind of modernize it, but
Mhm.
our live show that we tour with, it's a lot of Motown and throwback stuff, the classics,
Mhm.
um, because that's kind of where our market is for our touring.
Yeah.
But we're slowly inching into the modern stuff,
Mhm.
um, and that's really where a lot of my passion is. So I think I've been a bit of a driving force there in getting us on contemporary stuff and trying to, build a sound that stays true to where the group has been. So the group's been
Mhm.
around since 2012, I believe. So yeah, 10 years. And I joined in 2020. Yeah.
Mhm.
So they have a big history before I joined. And so we want to find a way to honor that while also seeing, what's the next step? What's the next evolution for this group?
Yeah. Excellent. I'm gonna ask a question about just kind of the background operations of the group, and the reason I'm asking is the question comes up so often in this business of like how can you manage it all? How can you do all the things? Because we want to do so many things,
Right.
but sometimes it's not possible, especially if you have any kind of exclusive agreement with a group that you're working with. But as you said, they're out there right now on a cruise. So what does that look like for them when they have one member? What do they do operationally? And then for you, obviously they've got a schedule, they have expectations and everything. How do you balance that out with all of the other projects you're doing? How do you make those decisions on what you're going to prioritize and what order?
Well, that's honestly the name of the game is
Right.
prioritizing everything. And that's going to be true for anybody that's trying to juggle things, is you have to know what is your number one thing,
Mhm.
and that's going to receive your biggest priority, and that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah.
um but so right now, my we got a guy to sub in for me who is actually a previous tenor one in the group. So he's
Okay.
like, he already knows the whole show. Is
Yeah.
great. He's available for it. Love it.
Uh-huh.
Um, but like we will have a roster of subs of people that can sub in if somebody is unavailable for something.
Mhm.
Um, but to speak to the prioritization, it's kind of going back to, you asked, what is, where do you see your career going? What's your big dream?
Mhm.
And for me, I'm prioritizing the things that I know are helping me on that journey.
Mhm.
Um, and th- that doesn't mean that everything else doesn't matter or isn't important to me. It's just that's kind of how it goes. And
Yeah.
if I've got a session for Spiderman, I think pretty much everything else is going to
Calling in that day.
exactly, everything else is taking a second fiddle to that.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I feel like pretty much everyone that I work with understands that that's just kind of how the industry is.
Mhm.
And when you're working in a freelance industry, which is what being a musician is,
Mhm.
um, you sign up for that. And when you're working with freelancers, you also sign up for that. So
Mhm.
it's kind of the name of the game. And thankfully, it has not been problematic for me in any of my working relationships.
Yeah, yeah. I know it's I have found that it's always important to communicate that to people
Yeah.
who are potentially giving you opportunities so they don't feel as though you're being opportunistic or that you are
Mhm.
taking the higher paying gig, kind of cherry picking things like
Yeah.
that. But when people understand who you are, what you're about, and they know, because people they care about their gig, you know,
Right. Right. Right.
they need
Right.
to know who's going to be there, who they can count on, and everything. So, yeah,
No,
I've found that.
communication skills are so important
Yes,
in
yeah,
any industry, but especially in our industry.
hmm
Um, Communicating with people that you work for, communicating with your colleagues and your peers, and
yeah,
um, you know, it 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 will get you very far to have well-developed communication skills.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And as independents and people who are constantly having to self-promote and sell yourself constantly, we can become very, I don't wanna say self-absorbed, but, our focus is kind of on what our priorities are, what's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
mean this to us, but you really do always kinda have to remind yourself that the people that are offering opportunities, their opportunity means everything to them.
Hmm.
They're not, accommodate or setting things up to, accommodate your
Yeah.
schedule, and so I really having that open, very transparent communication with people, can be so helpful, and I think I really only am driving that point home because, uh, talked about before, reputation in the business is so important.
Mm.
Sometimes it's unfortunate to have to say that, but really, it's so easy to get that reputation of bailing at the last minute or, being
Yeah.
that guy or, that, yeah, sure, hire him, but there's a strong chance that, he's gonna back out or not
Sure.
show up because he's sick, and so, yeah,
Well, and
just
that is where those communication skills come in, because there's times where I've been that person, and there are times where other people have been that to me,
yeah.
of the backing out at the last minute, or,
Mhm.
something comes up and you can't do it. But just for a small piece of advice for anybody, there is a big difference between, "I can't do this. I'm so sorry. I'm out. You'll figure it out," and I'm so sorry, this other thing has come up and I really need to, I need to say yes to it. I found another sub who can do this gig that you've already offered me, prepped him on
Mhm.
everything. It's going to be great. I'm so sorry again. Please understand. you know, and then you check in with them after the gig, how'd it go, how'd they do, you know, like there's
Yeah.
ways to handle a situation like that because it's
Mhm.
not fun to be in, um, for either party.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between leaving somebody hanging and communicating that you know, an unmissable opportunity has come up,
Yeah.
and it's happened to me where I've hired people for things and then they've had to back out at the last minute.
Mhm.
But if, you know, if you're backing out for something huge or massive, obviously I'm going to be understanding and I'm going to cheer you on as you're doing that. But if
Yeah.
you don't communicate what it is and you're just like, bye,
Yeah.
then obviously I'm not gonna be happy for you. So
Right.
there's ways to massage those things, and it's important for everybody to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. And, speaking of just life happens, as singers, we get sick. Me personally, I'm sure as everyone can hear, I hardly even have a speaking voice today. I yesterday woke up, have been very under the weather since then. But I had to work last night. I and my daughters were saying, just tell them that you can't come because you're sick. And I was like, well, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
As singers, if we don't work, we don't get paid. And people are counting on us to be there. So there obviously there are times when you have to call it at a certain point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but how does that usually play out for you? How do you protect yourself as a singer you've obviously got to be pretty aware of keeping yourself healthy and everything. And what do you do the week of a week when you've got sessions stacked on sessions and a live gig here and there and your voice is just trashed?
Honestly, it's funny because it feels like such a basic answer, but it's water and sleep
Yeah.
for me. Like
Mhm.
it comes down to the basics of if I don't get enough sleep, I will not sound as good as if I got a full 8 hours of sleep and I drank 100 ounces of water.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's it. And then, you know, like I have a steamer and like I do all of those things. But
Mhm.
for me, it really is as basic as sleep. And
Mhm.
that is the one downside of having the Sunday morning church gig because
Ah, yes.
when I finish a gig in Ojai at 2 a.m. and I have to be at church at 7 a.m. camera ready, that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But it's the name of the game sometimes.
Yeah, you wake up, what am I doing with my life? Why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And speaking of, I know I'm going in a lot of different directions with this, but just speaking of, vocal health, do you still work with professional, like coaches, teachers, and everything to kinda keep yourself in shape, or do you just handle all that business on your own these days?
You know, I think it's really smart to have a voice teacher and a vocal coach and check in with them. I try to check in as much as I can. Um, Gerald White is a great one.
Mm,
I send a lot of people to him. Drew Tablack is a great voice teacher also. Um, so I try to do that, but a piece of advice that I got in college was you have to be responsible for your own vocal development.
mhm.
And you want to partner with people that are more knowledgeable and that can help instruct you. But if you don't have the work ethic to practice on your own,
Mhm.
to feel things yourself of like how is this working? What is this placement? If you're not feeling that yourself, then there's only so much that a teacher is going to do for you.
Yeah.
So, you know, while I'm not in like regular weekly lessons or anything like that, I'm constantly checking in with myself and I have a very extensive practice regimen for things. So
Yeah.
so you know, I would say I'm my own vocal coach more than anything else, which is not necessarily the best advice. Go to a professional, but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, but making the point is great that as a professional, you are still practicing, you know, you don't
Oh, for sure.
just wake up every day and just cruise to the gig. I mean, most of the time there's still, you know, so much that's going on in the background.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think
My
that's very
favorite
cool.
thing to do is when I'm asked to sing a song or, um, for any kind of gig is I will make a demo,
Mhm.
like it's just a studio demo of whatever it was, or is going to be, and then I have that to practice to. And for me, it also just like ends up being a memorization thing. Like as soon as I
Mhm.
record something, then I like all of a sudden will not forget all the words. And so
Lucky.
yeah, well, I don't know what it is, it just, like, clicks for me, but if I didn't make a demo, then I'm, like, totally screwed. So
Oh,
so that usually ends up being my process is, "Hey, can
okay.
you sing this song next Saturday?" "Great. Let me listen to the original if I don't know it already. Let me record my demo," and then I have that to practice along to. Um, yeah, and people talk about, like, LA traffic all the time, and I will say the one thing it's good for is practicing.
Right. Yes. Oh, that's a good method. I like that. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Um, I just thank you so much for coming and sharing your time and your story with us tonight. You're such an inspiration, and I admire everything that you're doing. Always keeping an eye on you on social media, and it's always just it's wonderful, you know, to see all the incredible things that are happening for you, the things that you're making happen for yourself. So thank you very much for sharing yourself with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Danielle. This has been really, really fun.
Great. I have shared your links in the comments. Was there anything you wanted to kind of bring our awareness to tonight to promote that going to the TikTok channels, or are there any events we need to know about?
You know, most of the things that I do are for, like, private events, but you can
Mhm,
always check out Hour of Power every Sunday morning.
mhm,
It's live streamed on YouTube for free. If you have TBN, I think it's 6:30 on Saturday nights. Um, so you can usually catch me there.
mhm,
And then, yeah, my Instagram and my TikTok are at Connor Smith Music.
mhm.
Um, come see me at the Disney Junior Dance Party at Disneyland every now and then. And, yeah, that's about what I got.
That's great. All right. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who hung out with us tonight. We will see you back here next Wednesday at the same time. Thanks again. We'll be watching and keeping an eye on you, Connor. Thanks again for coming on tonight.
Alright, bye,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone. Good night.